Hey everybody, Colin here. Going to be recapping Week 8 and giving you some picks for Week 9 on this video. So let's go on, let's take a look back at Week 8, look at how good of a week we had, and then we'll hopefully try to replicate that this week. All right, so Week 8 we went 4-1 on the picks. That was Pitt first half -1.5. That was a win. It was close. I was thinking up until about midway through the second that they weren't going to do it, but they're now plus 128 point differential this year in the first half. They play Miami this week in Pittsburgh, so that might be a play you might want to keep an eye on. However, I couldn't find a book for it at this time. Keep an eye on it later as more books come out with those lines. Next one was Middle Tennessee State and UConn under 54. That was our first loss of the week and the only loss that we had with our weekly picks. The offense really took off for Middle Tennessee State, and UConn's defense they were unable to stop a nosebleed. The next win that we had was the Oregon money line. That defense was anchored by that star defensive end, Kayvon Thibodeau. They held UCLA's top 10 rush defense to just 110 yards. If you remember correctly from last week's video, that's what I said was going to be the big difference maker on who was ever going to be able to win this game. So next week, Oregon has Colorado at home coming up. Next win that we had was UTSA -6.5, and it was a lot more than that. So the Roadrunners are the third best group of 5 team in my opinion, behind Cincy and Southern Methodist, and they really looked like it, winning by 29 in this game. They're entering their bye week this week and then playing UTEP, which for people who are watching in Texas, that seems to be a pretty highly contested game there. Last one was Ohio State -21. Okay, so that one won. Ohio State's Ohio State. What do you want me to say? Indiana falls to 0-5 against the spread against ranked opponents. And Ohio State has Penn State this week, which looks like it's not going to be as tough of a game as everyone thought it would be. But it's going to kick off that tougher stretch of schedule with Penn State, Michigan State. It's going to be hard for them. So, also I want to put a shameless plug in for my Twitter page, which is @ChopTheChalk. We went 6 for 3 and we got up 7 units on daily picks. Those come out on a regular basis, so sometimes I like one, sometimes I like a couple. Make sure you follow me on Twitter in order to get more content on a regular basis and for a chance to win more money. So that means that if you include those with this week's picks, we went 10-4. So that's a pretty good week. So let's look at Week 9. The first pick that I have this week is Colorado plus 26.5 versus Oregon. And I'm seeing that around 110, -110. On sports books across the board. They're now as good as Oregon kind of looked at the end of the game this week. They haven't beaten an FBS team by more than 22 points this season. And it was Arizona in Week 4, but Colorado beat Arizona by 34 in Week 7. Colorado matches up as better than I think the spread dictates. They only allow 21 points per game to the last 3, which is Cal, Arizona, and USC. And they average 9 yards per pass, which plays into Oregon's inefficiencies that we discussed last week as well. I don't expect Colorado to win, but I think they'll cover this high spread. I don't think Oregon looks that unbeatable. And I think the old Colorado from earlier in the season isn't going to be the Colorado this week. Next one I have is Florida State plus 10 minus Clemson. Key stat here, Clemson's 0 for 7 against the spread this year, and until they prove us otherwise, that's something that we're going to keep betting on. They haven't beaten an FBS opponent by more than 6 points this year, which was Boston College and Georgia Tech. And I think lately Florida State's been a better team than those two teams. They're actually 2-1 in their last 3 against the spread. I think FSU is substantially better than Clemson in every key offensive metric here, guys. Points per game, points per play, average score margin, yards per game, time of possession, those are all things that are in favor of the Seminoles. And I think the Clemson Tigers are just a little bit better than FSU on defense, though. But it's close. I mean, I'm talking very close. Like yards per play is the difference of 4.6 for FSU's offense for Clemson's defense to 5.3 for FSU's offense. And then opposing yards per game, we're talking less than 40 points or 40 yards difference per game. So I think with that, you could probably back Florida State pretty confidently here. I know I put my money on that today at -110. So, all right, next one is going to be Southern Methodist versus Houston, over 62.5, and I see that around about -108 on the books. SMU has not had a total game score under 55 points in the last 5 weeks. That's not just them, that's both sides. And Houston has hit the over on the 4 of their last 5 games as well, all of which were 47 points or greater. So that's something to keep in mind there. SMU averages 40.5 points per game and 531.5 yards per game. And Houston averages 34 points per game and 354 yards per game. So some high-powered offenses here. And I think both defenses really haven't faced anyone close to the strength of each other. SMU's highest valued opponent was TCU, but they allowed 34 points and 446 yards. Houston's best was Texas Tech, and they allowed 38 and 376. So I think right here, the over 62.5, I think that's going to be a good play. I think when we do a check-in later on this week on Thursday, we're going to find that it's going to be a little bit higher, probably about a point or two higher, I would assume. I would think that up to about 65 is where this line is going to go. And the last one that I have, here's my long shot of the week. We're only doing 4 this week, is the UTEP money line. Plus 410 versus Florida Atlantic. FAU, I don't think, has really been playing up to their on-paper ability the last 5 weeks. Losses to UAB and Air Force by 17 and 24 respectively. Last week, yes, they came out with a pretty strong win on paper, but it took them 3 quarters to really get going. And I think UTEP is not a team that you can really take 3 quarters to get going, because they've won 4 straight. And I think FAU's defense plays right to UTEP's offensive ability. I mean, points per game is separated by 0.5 points in FAU's favor, but yards per game are separated by 20 yards in UTEP's favor. And then yards per play is 0.3 in FAU's favor. So really tightly contested game here. UTEP's defense is going to be tougher than what FAU is used to, though. 13th in opponent points per game in the nation, 7th in the nation in opponent yards per game, and then 8th in the nation in yards per play. So I think UTEP is going to give FAU all they can handle and then some. And I mean, if we cash a plus 410, I mean, that makes the whole week so much better. I think it's a long shot, should be taught as such. I don't think we should be putting the house or the farm on this one. I think it has real value in my eyes and could surprise us all. I think if you want to play another play on this, we'll do an alternate for our 5th pick. Would be the under 48 points, just due to UTEP's defense and due to they're not putting up such incredible offensive points per game. All right, a little bit shorter video this week, but once again, check out my Twitter feed at Chop the Chalk. That's where you're going to have more in-depth analysis. You're going to have daily picks. They come out about an hour to 2 hours before the game. I pick 1 pick per game, per day. And that's where we start making the real money at. That's where I look at the most up-to-date information on injuries, stats, outlooks, weather comes into play there. So drop me a follow there, and we'll be making some money. If we keep this trend up, I mean, we're looking at about 12 units more per week. So, all right, everybody, leave your comments, leave your input below, and I'll be talking to you on Thursday. All right, see ya.